Assalamualaikum viewers. Today I am going to discuss the most important gland of endocrine system, which is known as pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. Pituitary gland is called the master gland of endocrine system. Master gland of endocrine system. Because the hormones which are secreted by the pituitary glands, hormones of the pituitary glands stimulate other endocrine glands. Stimulates other endocrine glands such as thyroid gland, adrenal gland, and reproductive gland. Size of a pituitary gland is like the size of a pea. Size of pituitary gland is like size of a pea. And the weight of pituitary gland is 0.5 grams. Pituitary gland controls secretion of other endocrine glands, and it also have direct regulatory effect. Regulatory effect in major tissues. Pituitary gland is present in the brain, beneath the hypothalamus. This is called pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland is present beneath the hypothalamus. In the brain. The pituitary gland is present in a bony structure which is called sella turcica. Sella turcica, the bony structure in which the pituitary gland is embedded. Pituitary gland is present beneath the hypothalamus in the brain. Now the anatomy of pituitary gland. Pituitary gland. Pituitary gland has 3 lobes. One is posterior lobe, anterior lobe, and intermediate lobe. The posterior lobe and interior lobe are present in case of human beings. The intermediate lobe is not present in human beings. It is present in rats, rodents, and insects. Now the anatomy of pituitary gland. Anatomy of pituitary gland. The pituitary gland consists of 2 parts. It has 2 lobes. One is posterior pituitary posterior pituitary, and second is anterior pituitary. Anterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary arises from the hypothalamus. This is hypothalamus. Hypothalamus. Posterior pituitary is also known as the neurohypophysis. Neurohypophysis. And the anterior pituitary is called adenohypophysis. Adenohypophysis. Posterior pituitary consists of pars. This is pars tubulus and pars distalis. The anterior pituitary arises from the ectoderm and the posterior pituitary arises from the hypothalamus. The anterior pituitary have secretory cells which are known as the neurosecretory cells. And posterior pituitary consists of arterial blood and secretory neuron that are unmyelinated, lacking sheath of fatty insulation. The supraoptic, these are supraoptic nuclei and paraventricular nuclei. Paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus. These are extended from the hypothalamus and projects down into the infundibulum. This is infundibulum of hypothalamus. Infundibulum near the posterior pituitary. This is overall anatomy of the pituitary gland. Okay, I am gonna repeat it again. The pituitary gland is made up of two parts. One is posterior pituitary and second is anterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary arises from the hypothalamus and the anterior pituitary arises from the ectoderm. Posterior pituitary consists of the arterial blood and the anterior pituitary has pars tubulus and pars distalis. The supraoptic and the paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus are projects from the hypothalamus and then they project downward into the infundibulum near the posterior pituitary. This was my today's topic in which I explain about the pituitary gland, about specification of pituitary gland and about the anatomy of pituitary gland. In my next lecture, I will explain about the hormones of the pituitary gland and their effects. Allah Hafiz. Do not forget to subscribe my channel for latest and more relevant videos. Thank you.